It was a quiet suburban street. Anna had recently moved into an old house, a place with character, the kind of place you could hear creak at night. At first she thought it was charming, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It started with the windows. She'd catch a glimpse of a shadow in the corner of her eye, as though someone was standing just outside watching her. She'd pull back the curtain, heart racing, but there was never anyone there. The empty yard, the silence, the way the moonlight cast long, eerie shadows over the garden, it all seemed normal. As the clock struck 2 a.m, she heard it, a soft, scraping sound, like fingernails dragging across glass. Anna froze. She turned toward the window in the living room where the sound had come from. But as she stood up, the noise stopped. Her breath caught in her throat. Was it the wind? She had no idea. She cautiously approached the window, her heart pounding. The glass was cold beneath her fingers as she pulled the curtain back just enough to peer outside. There, at the edge of the garden, in the far corner by the old oak tree, was a figure, a silhouette, tall and thin, standing perfectly still. Anna's first instinct was to close the curtain and lock the door, but something stopped her. There was something wrong, something not quite right about the figure. It wasn't just that it was standing there. It was the way it was, as if it had been waiting patiently for her to notice. She stood there staring out into the dark yard, her body frozen. The figure didn't move. It didn't even seem to breathe. After what felt like an eternity, Anna finally took a deep breath and turned away. She was going to call the police, just to be safe. She wasn't going to look again, she told herself. But when she turned around, her heart dropped into her stomach. In the reflection of the glass, she saw it, the figure. It was standing right behind her. She spun around, but there was no one there. The room was empty, silent, save for the low hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Her legs wobbled beneath her as she backed away, eyes scanning the room, searching for some sign of the figure she'd seen. That's when the whispers started. Faint at first, like the rustling of leaves, but growing louder, clearer. "Let me in! Let me in!" She rushed to the front door, pulling at the lock, but it wouldn't open. She yanked harder, but the door seemed to be stuck. The whispers grew more urgent, louder, like a dozen voices all calling to her at once. "Let me in! Let me in!" She slammed her shoulder against the door, desperate now. And then the lock disengaged. The door swung open, revealing only the dark street outside. The yard was empty. But as Anna stood there, breathing heavily, she noticed something on the ground just in front of her, a small object half buried in the dirt. She knelt to pick it up, and her hand trembled as she recognized what it was. A key. A rusted, old-fashioned key, the kind that didn't fit anywhere in her house. And then, from behind her, a voice, soft and cold, whispered one last time, "You shouldn't have opened the door." Anna's heart pounded as she clutched the rusted key in her trembling hand. The whispers had stopped, leaving an eerie silence that seemed to press down on her. She stood in the doorway, staring out into the empty street, trying to make sense of what had just happened. She knew she couldn't stay there. The house felt like it was closing in on her. She needed answers. With a deep breath, she stepped back inside and closed the door behind her, locking it securely. The key, heavy and cold, felt like an anchor in her palm. The next morning, Anna decided to visit the local library. If there was any history about the house, this was the place to find it. She spent hours poring over old newspapers and town records, searching for any clue about the mysterious key and the figure she had seen. Finally, she found it. An article from decades ago, yellowed and brittle with age. The headline read, "Mysterious Disappearances Plague Old Oak Street." As she read on, a chill ran down her spine. The article detailed a string of unexplained disappearances, all centered around a particular house. Her house. The article mentioned a local legend about a man who had lived there long ago, a recluse who was rumored to have dabbled in dark rituals. It was said that he had a key that could unlock doors to other realms. But one night he vanished without a trace, and the key was never found. Anna's thoughts raced. Could this be the same key? And if so, what door did it unlock? She had to know. She returned home, the key feeling heavier than ever in her pocket. As night fell, Anna sat in the living room. the key resting on the coffee table in front of her. She couldn't shake the feeling that the answers she sought were within reach, but at a terrible cost. The house was silent, the air thick with anticipation. Finally, she made her decision. She picked up the key and began to search the house, testing it on every lock she could find. It wasn't until she reached the basement that she discovered an old hidden door concealed behind a stack of dusty boxes. Her hands shook as she inserted the key into the lock. It turned with a loud, ominous click. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Anna hesitated, her fear warring with her curiosity. But she knew there was no turning back now. She took a deep breath and stepped into the darkness, the whispering voices echoing in her mind. "Let me in! Let me in!" As she descended, the air grew colder and the whispers grew louder. She reached the bottom of the stairs and found herself in a small, dimly lit room. In the center of the room was a table, and on it an old, leather-bound book. Anna approached the table, her heart pounding. She reached out and opened the book, its pages filled with strange symbols and cryptic writings. As she read, she realized the terrible truth. The key was not just a key, it was a gateway, a portal to another realm. And by unlocking the door, she had invited something into her world, something dark and ancient. The whispers grew deafening, and the room seemed to close in around her. Anna's vision blurred, and she felt herself being pulled into the darkness. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the whispers stopped. Anna found herself back in her living room, the key still in her hand. The house was silent once more, but she knew that she was not alone. The figure in the window, the whispers, the key, it was all connected. And now she had to find a way to stop it before it was too late. The chilling tale of the watcher in the window had only just begun. Anna's nights grew increasingly restless. The whispers that once haunted her mind had turned into shadows that danced on the walls. Each night she would find herself waking up at exactly 3:33 a.m., drenched in cold sweat, the key still clutched tightly in her hand as if it had become an extension of her own body. Anna sought the help of a renowned professor of ancient languages at the local university. Professor Whitmore, a grizzled man with decades of experience, was intrigued by Anna's findings and agreed to help her decipher the book's secrets. Days turned into weeks as they worked tirelessly, piecing together the fragments of an ancient ritual. The more they uncovered, the darker the truth became. The book spoke of an entity, an ancient being that existed beyond the veil of reality, waiting for a way to cross into the human realm. The key, as they feared, was indeed a portal, a doorway that could be opened only by one with a pure heart and a strong will. One evening, as Anna returned home from another long session with Professor Whitmore, she noticed something strange. The air around her house felt heavy, almost suffocating. The once familiar surroundings now seemed alien and foreboding. As she entered, she could feel an unseen presence watching her, waiting. Anna's heart raced as she made her way to the living room. The key, now glowing faintly, lay on the coffee table. She knew she had to act fast. She grabbed the key and the book, and with a newfound determination, she headed to the basement. The hidden door stood ajar, the darkness beyond it seeming to pulse with a life of its own. Anna hesitated for a moment, but the thought of the entity crossing over spurred her into action. She descended the staircase, the whispers now a cacophony of voices urging her to turn back. In the dimly lit room, Anna placed the book on the table and began to chant the incantation she and Professor Whitmore had painstakingly translated. The air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to writhe and twist around her. The key in her hand burned with an intense heat, but she continued, her voice steady and unwavering. As she reached the final words of the incantation, a deafening silence fell over the room. The shadows receded, and the air grew still. Anna felt a weight lift off her shoulders as if the unseen presence had been banished. She collapsed to the floor, exhausted but relieved. The key, now just a cold, lifeless piece of metal, lay beside her. The book, its pages now blank, had served its purpose. Anna knew the entity had been sent back to its realm, but the experience had left her forever changed. As she made her way back to the living room, she glanced at the window. The figure was gone, and the whispers had ceased. The house, once a place of terror, now felt like a sanctuary. But Anna knew she would never forget the horrors she had faced, and the strength she had found within herself to overcome them. The watcher in the window was no more, but the chilling tale would live on, a testament to the power of courage and the resilience of the human spirit. As the days turned into months, Anna tried to put the chilling events behind her. The house, now filled with light and warmth, seemed to have forgotten the dark presence that once lurked within its walls. Yet deep inside, Anna knew that some scars never truly heal. One evening, while sorting through old family photographs, Anna stumbled upon a faded, sepia-toned picture she had never seen before. It depicted a group of people standing in front of a grand old mansion. Anna's eyes widened as she recognized the house. It was her own, but the photograph was dated over a century ago. Curiosity piqued, Anna decided to dig deeper into the history of her home. She visited the local archives and discovered that the mansion had a long and storied past. It had once belonged to a wealthy family, the van der Witts, who mysteriously vanished one night, leaving behind only whispers and rumors of dark rituals and forbidden knowledge. As Anna delved further, she found references to a hidden room, a chamber that was said to hold the key to the van der Witts' disappearance. The descriptions matched the basement where she had performed the incantation. Her heart raced as she pieced together the puzzle. Her house was not just a random location. It was the epicenter of the ancient entity's influence. Determined to uncover the truth, Anna returned home and descended once more into the basement. She searched every nook and cranny, and finally, behind a loose brick, she found a small, leather-bound journal. The journal belonged to the matriarch of the van der Witt family, and its pages were filled with detailed accounts of their experiments with the supernatural. The final entry sent chills down Anna's spine. It spoke of a prophecy, a chosen one who would come to banish the entity once and for all. The description fit Anna perfectly. She realized that her discovery of the key and the book was no accident. It was her destiny. As she closed the journal, Anna felt a sense of closure. The horrors of the past had been laid to rest, and the echoes of those who had come before her had guided her to fulfill her purpose. The house, once a place of darkness and fear, now stood as a beacon of hope and resilience. Anna knew she would never be the same, but she embraced the change. She had faced the unknown and emerged stronger. The watcher in the window was no more, but the legacy of courage and determination would live on, echoing through the halls of her home and the annals of time.